You know that feeling when you're so tired that your bones ache? Not the kind of ache you get from a good workout. I mean the deep, soul-crushing exhaustion that comes from knowing you have to do it all over again tomorrow. That was my life. For 3 years, I woke up at 4 in the morning to clean parking lots. I scraped gum off the concrete. I picked up trash that people threw out of their car windows without a second thought. I scrubbed stains that looked like they had been there since the 1980s. I was 74 years old. And my wife, Linda, she paid for her brother's new business. All of it. The lease, the equipment, the marketing. She drained our savings, the money we had put aside for our retirement. And she didn't even ask me. Now, let me take you back to the beginning, because if you don't understand the beginning, you won't understand why I didn't scream when I found out. You won't understand why I just stood there in that empty parking lot, holding my broom, and felt nothing but a cold, quiet calm. Linda and I had been married for 47 years. 47 years. That's a long time to share a life with someone. We met when I was 25 and she was 23. I was working as a delivery driver for a hardware store, and she was a secretary at a law firm. She was beautiful. She had this laugh that made everyone in the room turn their heads. I fell for her hard, and I spent the rest of my life trying to make her happy. We had 2 children, a son named Mark and a daughter named Sarah. They grew up, moved away, and started their own families. We saw them on holidays and birthdays the way most families do. It was a good life. Not a rich life, but a good one. I worked as a foreman in a furniture factory for 35 years. I put in the overtime. I skipped the vacations. I did everything I could to make sure we had a comfortable home and a secure future. When I retired, we had a nice little nest egg. It wasn't millions, but it was enough. Enough to live on comfortably. Enough to travel a little bit. Enough to help our grandchildren with their college funds if they needed it. It was the reward for a life of hard work. It was our security blanket. But then, something changed in Linda. It was subtle at first, like a small crack in a windshield that you don't notice until it spreads across the entire pane. She started talking about her brother, Greg. Greg was the baby of the family, 10 years younger than her. He had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. He was charming, always had a smile on his face, and never seemed to have a real job. I never had a problem with Greg. He was a bit of a dreamer, sure, but he was family. I helped him out a few times when he was between jobs, gave him a couple $100 here and there to help him make rent. I thought it was just life. Sometimes you need a hand. But then, Greg got this big idea. He wanted to open a craft brewery. He said it was the next big thing. He said they were popping up all over the country and making millions. He had a business plan, he said. He had investors lined up, he said. He just needed a little seed money to get the ball rolling. I remember the night he came over to pitch it to us. He was so excited, waving his hands around, talking about hops and barley and the perfect location. Linda was hanging on his every word. Her eyes were shining. She looked at him like he was a genius. When he left, she turned to me. "We have to help him," she said. I was hesitant. "Honey, we have our own plans. We have our savings. That money is for us, for our retirement. We can't just sit on it while my brother has the chance to build a legacy," she argued. "This is a real opportunity, Richard. This is his chance to finally make something of himself. We have to believe in him." I told her we could give him a small loan, a few $1,000s, but that we had to be careful. We were not young anymore. If something happened to us, we needed that safety net. She agreed, but there was a look in her eye, a look of disappointment. She thought I was being selfish. That was the beginning of the end. For the next 6 months, Greg's name was all she talked about. The brewery was going to be called Greg's Gold. He had found a location in a trendy part of town. He was working with a designer. It was going to be beautiful. Meanwhile, I was watching our savings account dwindle. She told me she was giving him small amounts to cover the urgent costs. I trusted her. I trusted my wife. I thought we were helping a family member get on his feet. I didn't know she was digging the foundations out from under our own house. Then the moment came. The moment I went from being a respected husband to a man who cleans parking lots for a living. The furniture factory where I had worked for over 3 decades closed down. The pension I had been promised was slashed because of some corporate restructuring. The safety net I had built was gone, and the savings account that was supposed to be our lifeboat was almost empty. Panicked, I told Linda we had to stop the money going to Greg. I told her we were in serious trouble. The retirement I had worked for my entire life was crumbling before my eyes. I was 68 years old, and I had no income and very little savings. She looked at me with this cold, detached calm. "Richard, Greg's business is just about to take off," she said. "He's weeks away from opening. We can't stop now. What's the point of having money if you can't use it to help your family?" "Help our family?" I said, my voice shaking. "We are our family. You and me. We are the ones who need help." She sighed, like I was being a burden. "You need to find a job, Richard, just until we sort this out. It's not the end of the world." Find a job? At 68? With my back and my knees the way they were? I had no college degree. My skills were in manual labor. But I did it. I did what I had to do. I swallowed my pride. I went to the temp agencies. I filled out applications. I took the only job I could get. Cleaner. Minimum wage. Night shifts. Cleaning a massive, multi-story parking garage downtown. The place was a beast. It was cold and windy and smelled of exhaust fumes and stale coffee. My job was to walk up and down the concrete ramps, picking up trash, scrubbing the walls, and sweeping the grime off the floors. I would leave the house at 3 in the morning. I'd be out there in the dark with the flickering fluorescent lights, while the rest of the world slept. My back would be screaming by the time my shift ended. I was 74 years old, the age when most men are playing golf or traveling, and I was scraping gum off a parking lot floor. And the worst part? Greg's brewery was a success. It opened and it was packed every night. People loved it. I saw it on the local news. I heard people talking about it at the grocery store. "Have you been to Greg's Gold? The beer is fantastic." Every time I heard that name, it felt like someone was twisting a knife in my chest. My pain, my exhaustion, my humiliation. It was building the foundation for his success. I never said anything to Linda. I was too tired to fight. I was too worn down. I was a ghost in my own life. I would come home from work, utterly drained, and she would be watching TV on the phone with Greg, laughing about some new recipe they were trying or some new piece of equipment he had bought. I was a stranger in my own home, paying the price for her brother's dream. The day I found out the truth, it was a Thursday. It had been raining all day, and the parking lot was a mess. Wet leaves were stuck to everything. A disgusting smell was rising from the drains. It was a miserable night. My hands were raw from the cold and the cleaning chemicals. My knees felt like they had rusty nails jammed into them. I got home around dawn, exhausted and filthy. The sky was starting to get light, that pale, watery gray before the sun comes up. I went inside, thinking I would just collapse onto the bed. But Linda was already awake. She was sitting at the kitchen table, a smile on her face. It was a big, triumphant smile. "Richard, sit down," she said. "I have wonderful news." I sat down heavily. I felt like I was sinking into the chair. "Greg's business is doing so well," she said. "He just got a huge contract with a local hotel chain. He's going to be supplying them with all their beer. It's going to be huge." "That's nice," I said, my voice flat. "I just wanted to go to bed." "Don't you see what this means?" she said, leaning forward. "It's all paid off. The money we invested, it was an investment. We're going to get it back and more. He's going to pay us back. We're going to be rich." I stared at her. "What are you talking about? What money?" "The money we gave him, Richard," she said, her smile faltering just a little. "For the business." "We didn't give him anything," I said. "We gave him a few $1,000s. A loan." She laughed. It was a nervous laugh. "Oh, Richard, you're so naive. We didn't give him a few thousand. I gave him our savings. All of it." She said it so casually, like she was telling me she had bought a new dress. My vision went blurry. I felt the air leave the room. My head was spinning, and my hands were shaking. "What did you say?" "Come on, Richard," she said, a bit defensively now. I knew you would say no. I knew you would be stubborn. You never believed in him. I had to do what was right. I had to take a leap of faith. It was our money too. I had a right to do what I wanted with it. No, I said, my voice trembling. No, you didn't. That was our retirement. That was our safety. That was my life. Your life? She snapped, her eyes narrowing. Your life was working in a factory and sitting in this house. Greg is building something. He's creating a legacy. He's a success. What are you? A janitor. Cleaner. You're out there in a parking lot, with your mop and bucket, while my brother is running a business. Her words were like venom. They stung me, burned me, but more than that, they woke me up. Something inside me that had been asleep for years, that had been growing dull and tired, suddenly snapped into sharp, painful focus. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her. I didn't beg for closure. I just stood up. I walked into the bedroom. I packed a small bag. She was still sitting at the table when I came back out. Where do you think you're going? She asked, sounding annoyed rather than concerned. I'm going to work, I said, like I do every day. I have to get to Greg's place, she said, waving her hand dismissively. He's hosting a brunch for the investors. It's a big day. I'll see you later. She didn't even see me. She was already on her phone, texting Greg, planning the next step in their fairy tale lives. I was a ghost, and the ghost just left. The parking lot was empty that morning. I stood in the center of it, looking at the gray concrete, the faded lines, the piles of trash. This was my life. This was what my marriage had brought me to. I had given everything to that woman. I had sacrificed 47 years of my life, and she had traded it all for a brother who never had to sacrifice anything. A man who was living his best life on my bones. I felt a coldness wash over me. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't anger. It was something else. It was a resolution, a steel knot formed in my stomach. For 3 years, I had been an accomplice to my own destruction. For 3 years, I had let her manipulate and mistreat me because I was too tired to fight. But now I wasn't tired anymore. I was awake. I was finally brutally awake. I couldn't take it back. The money was gone. The years were gone. The future I had planned was gone. But the story wasn't over. Not yet. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to let them see me break. I was going to make them understand. I was going to make them pay. This was my revenge. My mind started to work, clear and sharp for the first time in years. The real betrayal wasn't just the money. That was just a symptom. The real betrayal was the disrespect. She saw me as a fool, a doormat, an old man who was just a burden, a means to an end. Greg saw me as an ATM, a source of free money. They looked at me and saw nothing but a way to get what they wanted. My plan began to form in my mind as I made my rounds. It wasn't a plan for violence. It wasn't loud or flashy. It was quiet. It was patient. And it was legal. The first step was information. I had the most powerful weapon at my disposal. I was invisible to them. They had written me off. They thought I was too weak, too old, too stupid to do anything. I decided to use that against them. I started paying attention. I started listening. I worked in the heart of the city and people talk. They talk in the elevators, on the street corners, in the coffee shops. I was just a cleaner. A nobody, piece of the background. People said things in front of me that they would never say in front of a bank manager or a lawyer. I learned that Greg had taken out massive loans to start the brewery. Massive. He had overextended himself. The business was full, but it was also full of debt. The deal with the hotel chain? It was big, but the margins were razor thin. He had promised to pay everyone back with money he hadn't even made yet. He was a man walking a tightrope. I also learned about the investors. They weren't just rich people. They were people with reputations. People who liked to look important. Greg had promised them a golden goose. The pressure was on him to deliver. My next step was to visit a lawyer. A small, quiet lawyer who did a lot of work with older people. I didn't tell him I was planning revenge. I just asked for a consultation. I told him about my wife's unauthorized spending. I told him about the money she had taken from our joint accounts. The lawyer, a man named Mr. Henderson, was a grave-looking man with sad eyes. He listened to my story without interrupting. When I was done, he leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Miller," he said, "this is a very serious matter. The funds in your joint account are equally yours. Your wife did not have the right to give them away without your consent. However, proving it after the fact, when the funds have already been spent, is difficult." He explained the legal realities to me. A divorce would be a long, expensive process, and since she had spent the money, there was no guarantee I would get any of it back. A judge might see it as a marital decision. I would likely walk away with nothing but the clothes on my back and a mountain of legal fees. The news was devastating. Felt like I had hit another brick wall. But then, I asked him a different question. What if I don't want the money back? What if I just want my name off of everything? What if I want to be free of any responsibility for her decisions? He looked at me curiously. What do you mean? What if I just disappear? I asked. Legally, I mean. He leaned forward. You mean a separation of finances? A legal separation? You can file for a formal separation, Mr. Miller. It doesn't have to be a divorce, but it separates your legal and financial interests from your wife's. Any debts she incurs after the date of the separation are her responsibility, not yours. Your assets are yours alone. I didn't go home that night. I went to a small motel on the edge of town. I paid for a room in cash. I sat on the edge of the bed and called Mark, my son. He was surprised to hear from me. We hadn't talked much in recent years. Life had gotten in the way. I didn't tell him about the cleaning job or the exhaustion. I just asked him if he and his sister could meet me. I told him it was important. They came the next day. We met in a quiet coffee shop. Sarah was worried. Mark was guarded. They had always felt the tension between their mother and me, but they never knew the details. I told them everything. I told them about the money, the savings, the parking lot, the years of quiet suffering. I didn't ask them for sympathy. I didn't ask them to take sides. I just told them the truth. Mark was angry. He was angry at his mother. He was angry at his uncle. He wanted to go confront them both right then. Sarah was crying. She couldn't believe her mother would do something so cruel. Dad, Mark said, his jaw tight. What do you want to do? We'll support you. We'll stand by you. It's not about standing by me, I said. It's about the future. Your mother and I are at a crossroads. I'm going to file for a legal separation. I'm going to protect myself from her debts. And I'm going to make sure Greg answers for what he did. I had the paperwork drawn up. I legally separated myself from Linda's financial life. I got a new bank account. I started getting my small salary deposited there. I had the papers served to her at the house. I didn't see the look on her face when she got them, but I can imagine it. The shock, the confusion. She called me screaming. What are you doing? You're ruining everything. I'm not ruining anything, Linda, I said calmly. I'm just protecting what's left of my life. If you want to throw your future at your brother's feet, that's your choice. But you won't do it with mine. This is a betrayal, she shrieked. After everything I've done for you. I almost laughed. Everything you've done for me? Everything you've done for me is take my money, insult my dignity, and force me to clean parking lots so your brother can be a king. There was a pause. I could hear her breathing heavily. Then she said the words that sealed her fate. You're nothing, Richard. You're a pathetic old man. I made you. I gave you the best years of my life. This is how you repay me. I hung up the phone, and I realized that I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a deep, profound emptiness. She had finally shown me who she really was, and I believed her. The next part of the plan required patience. I learned that Greg had a secret. He had told the investors he had exclusive contracts with local bars and restaurants. He had told them he was crushing the competition. But the truth was, the competition was crushing him. There was another brewery in town, a much older, more established one called Klein's Brewing. They had a loyal following. Their beer was better. Greg's customers were mostly trendy people who came for the atmosphere. Klein's customers were people who came for the beer. Greg had made a fatal mistake. He had started a smear campaign against Klein's. He was spreading rumors online that they used cheap ingredients, that they had health violations. He was trying to destroy their reputation. But he did it from a burner email account. A burner account that he used for everything. He was sloppy. He was arrogant. He thought he was untouchable. I had the address of the computer expert at the local university. I paid him a small consultation fee. I asked him a hypothetical question. If someone was using a fake email account to defame a local business, could their identity be traced? Hypothetically speaking, he said, yes. There are always footprints, digital breadcrumbs. If the person was using an unsecured network, it's much easier. I wouldn't give you the information myself, but a court order would compel the internet service provider to provide the records. The IP address is a physical location. I gathered all the information I had. The emails Greg had sent from that account, the negative reviews, the false accusations. I sent an anonymous package to the owner of Klein's Brewing. Contained all of the evidence. It didn't say who sent it, just the facts. A few weeks later, I saw the news. A press conference. The owner of Klein's was standing at a podium. He was talking about the attacks on his business. He was talking about the cowardly campaign of misinformation. And then, he announced it. He was filing a lawsuit against Greg's Gold for defamation. He named Greg personally. The shit hit the fan. Greg was frantic. His investors were panicking. The hotel chain that had just signed a deal with him wanted no association with a scandal. They pulled their contract. Other bars and restaurants followed suit. Greg's reputation, the only thing he had, was destroyed. I watched it all from my motel room. I had finally gotten a normal job. Nothing fancy, just a clerk at a hardware store. I was still tired, but my soul felt lighter. The weight of the injustice was slowly lifting. Linda called me a few weeks after the lawsuit was announced. She was no longer angry. She was desperate. "Richard," she said, her voice cracking. "Please, you have to help us. Greg is losing everything. The lawyers are going to take the brewery. We're going to lose the house. The investors are suing him for fraud. We have nothing. Please, you have to talk to them. You have to make it stop." "There is no us, Linda," I said calmly. "There is you and Greg. And there is me. You made that clear. I am just a pathetic old man who cleans parking lots. Remember? Richard, please," she begged. "I made a mistake. I was wrong. I was so wrong. But we can't lose everything. You can't let this happen to us." "I didn't let anything happen," I said. "Greg did this to himself. He tried to destroy a man's business. He tried to cheat his way to the top. He used our money to build his empire, and he built it on a foundation of lies. The law is coming for him now. There's nothing I can do, and honestly, there's nothing I want to do." She cried. She screamed. She pleaded. But I was immune to it. I had already grieved. I had already mourned the marriage. The woman on the other end of the line was a stranger who wore my wife's face. "You'll be sorry, Richard," she hissed, her voice turning bitter again. "I hope you rot in that motel room. You're a bitter, lonely old man. You're going to die alone." "Maybe," I said, "but at least I'll die with my dignity intact. And I won't die in a parking lot." I hung up. The lawsuit was a disaster for Greg. He lost the brewery. He lost the house. He lost everything. Linda was forced to sell the house we had lived in for 40 years just to pay for his lawyers. She moved into a small apartment. I heard she was living off what little was left of her own money, struggling to get by. A few months later, I was walking through the hardware store, helping a customer choose a paint color. It was a simple, honest job. I wasn't rich, but I had enough. I was taking care of myself. My son and daughter came to visit me more often now. I was spending time with my grandchildren. Life was simple, but it was mine. And then I saw Greg. He was in the store, looking older, more haggard. He was wearing a cheap suit that didn't fit him. He was talking to a customer, trying to sell them a used lawnmower. He looked up, and his eyes met mine. I saw the hatred in his eyes, the desperation. He knew what I had done. He had to know I was the one who sent that package to Klein's. But he couldn't prove it. There was nothing he could do about it. He was a salesman at a hardware store and I was the manager. I looked at him. I felt nothing. No anger. No pity. Just a quiet sense of satisfaction. I didn't need to say a word. The silence was enough. I walked over to him. "Can I help you, Greg?" I asked, my voice calm and professional. He just stared at me, his face pale, his hands shaking. He looked like he wanted to say something, to scream, to fight. But he knew he couldn't. He was in my house now. I smiled. A small, tight smile. And I said the words I had been waiting to say for years. "It's a good job, Greg. The pay isn't great, but at least you don't have to beg your wife to steal your sister's money to keep the lights on." He just turned and walked away. He didn't say a word. He just walked out of the store, into the bright sunlight. I stood there for a moment watching him go, and I realized that the revenge wasn't about hurting him. It was about protecting myself. It was about reclaiming my life. But there was one more conversation to have. A few weeks later, I got a call from Linda. I almost didn't answer it, but I did. Couldn't help it. After 47 years, there's still a part of you that needs to know. "Richard," she said. Her voice was quiet, defeated. "I'm not calling to ask for anything. I want to say I'm sorry. I know it doesn't matter now. I know it doesn't fix what I did. But I was so stupid. I was so caught up in Greg and his dreams. I forgot about you. I forgot about us." I didn't say anything for a long time. I could hear her crying softly on the other end of the line. "I lost everything," she continued. "The house, the money, my family. Mark and Sarah won't speak to me. I'm alone. You were right. I made my bed. And now I have to lie in it." "You were always a better person than I was, Richard," she said. "You always worked hard, you always did the right thing. And I took it for granted. I treated you like a servant. I made you feel small. I'm so sorry." I felt a tightness in my throat. The anger was gone. The bitterness was fading. All that was left was a profound sadness. She was a broken woman, a shadow of the person I had married. "I forgave you a long time ago, Linda," I said. "I had to. For myself." "But you're not coming back," she said. It wasn't a question. "No," I said. "I'm not. The life we had is over. I've started a new one. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. I hope you find peace." I hung up the phone. I walked to the window of my small, comfortable apartment and looked out at the city. I was 77 years old. I had lost everything and then I had rebuilt it all from scratch. I had learned a valuable lesson. The people you love can hurt you the most, but you can't let them destroy you. You have to find the strength to stand on your own 2 feet, to believe in yourself. The man who cleaned the parking lot was gone. In his place was a man who had learned his worth. And that is the greatest revenge of all. That is the story. The story of a man who was broken, but who found the strength to put himself back together. It's not a happy ending, not in the traditional sense. But it's a just one. A quiet, dignified victory of the human spirit over greed and cruelty. And sometimes, in this world, that's the best kind of ending you can hope for. I still think about her sometimes. The way she used to laugh. The way she made me feel like I was the luckiest man in the world. Those memories used to bring me pain. Now they just bring me a quiet sense of peace. They're just memories now. And I am free. The end.